Today I want to talk to you about earnest money. Earnest money is a very important piece of the puzzle in the home buying process. I wanted to take a little deeper dive because you guys have a lot of questions when earnest money comes up in the conversation. You have some concerns. Some of your concerns are, how much earnest money do I need? Am I able to get those funds back? What happens? Where does the earnest money go? Am I able to lose my earnest money? Questions like that. So we're going to take a look at earnest money a little closer today. Stay tuned as we get ready to jump into it. All right, so let's talk about earnest money. Very important piece of the puzzle when in the home buying process. First off, what is earnest money? Earnest money is a good faith deposit. You're not giving those funds to the seller, at least not right away, all right? And possibly not at all. But it's a good faith deposit, and you're showing the seller that you're serious about purchasing the home. As we have discussed, that the larger the earnest money deposit, the more your offer stands out. Is there a required amount for earnest money here in Washington State? The answer to that question is no. There is no required amount for earnest money here in Washington State. So literally, you can deposit $1 as your earnest money deposit, but will that put you in front of someone who has a $5,000 earnest money deposit? No, it will not. I'm gonna just tell you that now. It's not going to put you in the best light when the seller looks at your offer. We generally go by an industry standard. Again, it's not required, but we go by an industry standard that is 1 to 3% of the purchase price. Those are good numbers to work with. I've seen $500, even about $300. Some have even gotten into contract with as much as $250 as an earnest money deposit. So things like that you want to keep in mind, especially the amount of earnest money that you're going to be depositing. You want to think about, what type of market are you in? Are you in a market where it's really competitive, where sellers really, let's say, they don't have a whole lot of patience and they really want to weed people out who are more likely to fall out of contract? A lot of sellers, they look at the amount of your earnest money deposit in those terms. If the earnest money deposit is a really low amount, then on top of that, they really don't care for your loan product, which is crazy. They may say, you know what, this buyer just isn't a strong buyer at all. Their earnest money deposit is super low. They're really likely to fall out of contract. So to get back on track, the industry standard we go by is generally 1 to 3% of the purchase price. This is something that you really must understand. The earnest money deposit, it is deposited 48 hours. Here in Washington State, it's 48 hours or 2 banking days. So you only have 48 business hours to get your earnest money deposited into either an escrow account or in the listing brokerage's trust account. Some listing brokerages have a trust account where they'll hold those earnest money funds, but more than likely here in Washington State, those funds are deposited into an escrow account, okay? So that's 48 business or 48 banking hours, 2 banking days. I guess that makes more sense, right? 2 banking days, 48 business hours. Those funds have to be deposited into an escrow account. The escrow account more than likely will be the same company that is handling the transaction, that is chosen by the seller. You can request to use your own escrow company for the escrow side, the title side, or for both. But know that if you make that request to use a different company, again, that could cause your offer to lose some strength. Not to confuse you, those funds are going to be deposited into an escrow account let's say 99.9% of the time. That escrow company is going to be the company that the seller chose to work with on the transaction. Those are your funds. They're deposited into this account and they are held by the escrow officer or the escrow closer handling the transaction. What if you need more than 48 hours? If you need more than 48 hours, you can write that in your initial offer that you'll need, let's say, 3 business days, right? You also can write you can use a form that is a promissory note saying that you will deposit the funds in 5 business days. That gives you a little more time to get those funds deposited into the escrow account, which still keeps you in compliance with getting earnest money deposited. It also will protect your offer from expiring, right? Because if you don't deliver the earnest money as you should within the needed amount of time, then your offer can expire. Okay, so and then you can fall into more trouble. I don't want to dig into that, but you can fall into more trouble after that. But usually the contract will expire, the seller will get a form sent to you via their agent, and they'll walk away, put the home back on the market, get another buyer. Trust me, if this is a house that you chose, that you want to move into, right? So you just don't want to play around. And that's what a lot of sellers want to get away from. They want to get away from buyers playing around. More commonly, you want to get those funds in 2 business days, 2 banking days, however you want to say it, after you get in the contract. I know that was pretty lengthy. Hopefully I didn't lose you. That's one scenario. What else happens with those funds that you deposited into the escrow account as your earnest money? Those funds later can be used for part of your down payment. If you're not getting down payment assistance, those funds can be used for part of your closing costs. Your closing costs, they have to do with the amount of taxes that you'll have to pay, whatever your prorated amount is, your escrow fees, your title insurance, all those different types of fees, your homeowner's insurance. Those funds will go towards those things as well. Now, there's some cases where the seller will cover a portion or all of your closing costs, and you've already accounted for your down payment funds, or you're getting down payment assistance. Then in those cases, you'll get your earnest money funds back after you close. So how can you make sure that you protect your earnest money? You can make sure you protect your earnest money by doing what's expected of you during the contingency time period. So there's a few contingency time periods or time frames that you want to pay close attention to. One of them is the inspection contingency. In a real competitive market, a lot of times, sellers will try and urge the buyer to waive inspection. That's totally up to you, but I recommend that you always get an inspection so that you know what you're walking into. Let's say that, and we're still talking about earnest money, your earnest money has to do with being protected during this time period, whether you can get those funds back or whether those funds will continue to be held until closing. Let's say your inspection is 3 days. You have a 3-day inspection time period, meaning that you will have your inspection performed by a licensed inspector. You have reviewed everything that has came out in the inspection report, and that you have given your inspection response back to the seller. During that time period, your earnest money funds are protected. Now, if for any reason you guys could not negotiate, you and the seller could not negotiate on things that needed to be fixed or things that you would have liked to be fixed, and you decide that if you can't come to an agreement, and if the seller won't compensate in any way, then you're going to walk away. As long as you do what you're supposed to do within the 3-day time period, you'll be able to walk away from that contract and get your earnest money back. Okay? unless what comes up in the inspection is just crazy and a nightmare, and the seller is not agreeing to make those repairs, then let's do everything that we can do to move this transaction forward. Some things that you want to keep in mind is that someone's living in this home. I'm not saying just buy any old thing, and everyone has their preferences. They have their levels of flexibility, what they're willing to walk into. All I'm saying is try to do everything necessary to keep the deal moving forward. We also have a appraisal contingency. So when the appraiser comes out to appraise the home, make sure the home is structurally sound, structurally safe. If that appraisal comes back, meaning that you agreed to purchasing the home at $450,000, the appraiser comes out and appraises the home, and they only appraise the home at $435,000. Now, you have the option to either walk away if the seller does not agree to reduce the purchase price down to the appraised value. If they don't agree to do that, then you can try and work it out with the seller. Try to work something out to where you guys can move the deal forward. Or you can pay the difference out of pocket. But if you guys, again, can't come to an agreement during that appraisal contingency period, and you have to walk away, you will get your earnest money back. I'm just walking pretty slow through here to make sure that it's making sense and to make sure that you catch it. There's also the financing contingency. In the competitive market, sellers will once again attempt to urge you to waive the financing contingency, meaning that if at any point the lender and the underwriter determines that you cannot get finance for this home and say, you know what, we can't lend you this money, you're gonna have to pull out of the deal. Now, if you do not waive that contingency, and for any reason you get to a point in the transaction, the underwriter determines that they cannot lend you the amount of funds that they originally said that they would be able to lend to you, and you're not able to pay the difference out of pocket, then you're able to walk away without losing your earnest money. If at any point they say you cannot purchase this home because you don't qualify, at least for that amount of money, and you did not waive that financing contingency, you can walk away and get your earnest money back. So let's talk about another scenario, and we'll probably wrap it up here. What if you get to a point in the transaction, let's say 25 days in, right? Usually this comes up when you've gone beyond. Generally right now, a transaction takes about 30 days. Sometimes you might need an extension, right? So if you need one extension and then you need another extension, sometimes a seller will request that you release the earnest money. They might do it if you ask for your first extension. They might do it if you ask for extension number 2, and 9 times out of 10, if you ask for extension number 3, they're gonna ask you to release your earnest money. And what that is, they're saying whatever's going on, usually they'll do it when, you know, there's a lot of work on your end, the buyer, when you need the extensions, when the lender has to get more information from you and they have to verify a few more things, so you need to extend it, and whatever the case is, you need an extension, right? Sometimes they'll request that you release your earnest money. Now, sometimes even before you ask for an extension, they might ask maybe 25 days into the deal that you give proof that you're able to still purchase the home and request that you release your earnest money funds should you not be able to purchase the home. What that's saying is that for any reason that you're not able to purchase the home and you and the seller are not able to negotiate more time to allow you to get to where you can be able to purchase it, if that's even a possibility, if for any reason the contract falls through, then you agree to give the seller those earnest money funds that you deposited. What happens if you release the earnest money to the seller and you still end up closing? Let's leave it. I think that's plain enough. Those funds will be used towards your down payment. They'll be more so like credit towards the purchase of the property. You following me? Okay. If you release the funds to the seller and you're not able to close, then you lose that money. Now, in Washington State, let's say you make a large, some people want to make a large earnest money. I don't recommend, but some people do. There's actually a story about this, how a family lost their life savings. This was in another state. They lost their life savings because they had such a large earnest money deposit. Anyhow, here in Washington State, a seller cannot take more than 5% of the purchase price of your earnest money funds. So if your earnest money deposit is 5% or more, let's say more than 5% of the purchase price, then the seller cannot take more than 5% if you release those funds to the seller. Overall, you want to make sure that you perform all of your duties on your end to make sure that your earnest money funds are protected. I've dealt with buyers who have gotten all the way to closing and they purposely did not fulfill their duties on their end because they no longer wanted the property, and they just sucked it up and said, you know what, I'll go ahead and I'll chalk it up. $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, I'll go ahead and chalk it up because I no longer want this property. Don't let that be you. Sometimes you may get wrapped up in a transaction. You really want the property, and we're extending all of the possibilities to try to help you get into this home. Finally, the seller says, hey, release the earnest money, or I'm not going to move forward with this transaction. I would say go ahead, get your earnest money back and walk away.